Welcome to Economics of Innovation and Intellectual Property. I'm Paul Belflamme. In this video, I'm going to talk about complementary innovations. In this video, we want to address three questions. First, what are complementary innovations? Second, which pricing problem do they raise? And third, why a cartel can be a solution to this pricing problem. Okay, let's first define complementary innovations. Well, first of all, we need to understand that innovation is a cumulative process. Innovations are rarely produced in complete isolation, and this is very true in high-tech industries. Now, for analytical reasons, we distinguish between two types of cumulative innovations. First, there are sequential innovations. Here we've got one innovation that gives rise to many follow-up innovations. Think of the laser, for example. The laser gave rise to, for example, laser eye surgery, fiber optic communication systems, CD and DVD reading and engraving, and you name it. So here, one innovation leads to several innovations that follow, and we have understood in another video that the main problem here is the holder problem. And remember, the potential solution would be ex-ante licensing. Here, we consider what we call complementary innovations. The idea here is that several innovations are necessary to produce a new one. An example would be the smartphone. The smartphone combines several technologies like hardware components, software and operating systems, display technologies, camera and imaging technologies, etc., etc. Here, this is what we discuss in this video. The potential problem is called royalty stacking, and the potential solution would be a patent pool, which, as we will see, is a form of cartel. So what is exactly the problem? Well, to understand the problem, let us remember first of all a problem that you probably know, which is called the tragedy of the commons, which matters for common resources. So here, the problem is that a resource is prone to overuse if multiple owners are each endowed with the privilege to use this resource, while no one has the right to exclude others. The prototypical example would be overfishing. Many people have the right to fish, but they end up fishing too much, which depletes the resource and has a negative impact on everyone. What we consider here is the opposite problem, and this is why Heller in 1998 has called this the tragedy of the anti-commons. Here, a resource is not prone to overuse but to underuse, and the reason is that multiple owners are each endowed with the right to exclude others from this resource, while no one has an effective privilege of use. And the underuse, as we will see, results from a total access price that is too high. An example would be a way, a road or a river on which successive tolls are imposed. And when you add up the total bill you've got to pay to travel this road, the bill is so high that you don't want to go there, and total traffic will decrease under what would be optimal. This is basically the story that we want to tell here, applied to complementary innovations. So let's consider a very simple model with two industries, the upstream and the downstream industry, which are linked in the following way. In the upstream industry, we've got two research firms, 1 and 2, and each firm owns a patent which it licenses at a per unit royalty, which we note RI. So, as we will see, the downstream industry will have to pay RI per unit of products that they produced using this patent. Okay? Now, the two patents are essential for the production of this final product. This is exactly what I just said. So in the downstream industry, as I said, there are manufacturers. We assume that they are perfectly competitive. And basically what they do is to combine the two patents to produce a new product. Okay, and the cost for producing 1 unit of the new product is the sum of the royalties that the manufacturer has to pay to each of the 2 research firms. Okay, when we say that the patents are essential, we mean that there is no other way to produce the final product than by using the 2 patents. Okay, now because we assume perfect competition, the price of the final product will be equal to the marginal cost of production, which, as I said, is the sum of the royalties paid to the 2 research firms. Now we assume a demand function for the final product, which is this one. The total quantity sold of the final product is 120 minus the price, and as we just said, the price is equal to the sum of the 2 royalties. Okay, now to produce 1 unit of the final product, you need to combine 1 unit of patent 1 and 1 unit of patent 2. Okay, and so the demand for the patent, so the number of licenses that will be given, if you want, is exactly the demand for the final product. So this is what we write here. The demand for patent 1 and the demand for patent 2, which depend on the 2 royalty rates, R1 and R2, is given by this formula here, 120 minus the sum of the royalties. Okay, so the problem we want to analyze is how the 2 patent owners will set their royalties. The first scenario we consider is a scenario where the 2 royalties are set separately and strategically by the 2 patent owners. Now let me walk you through the math here. This is a rather simple problem. Let's take firm 1. Firm 1 chooses its royalty R1 to maximize its profit, which is R1 times the quantity sold of the final product, which incorporates the patent of firm 1. And as we just saw on the previous slide, this demand is 120 minus R1 minus R2. We take the first order condition, so we maximize profit with respect to the royalty rate. And if you do this, I spare you the details, but you will find the reaction function of firm 1 in this way. So that tells firm 1 what R1 to choose given any R2 that the other firm could choose. And this formula tells you that it should be equal to 1/2 of 120 minus R2. You can proceed exactly in the same way for firm 2, and by solving the system of these 2 reaction functions, you find the Nash equilibrium of the game, and you can redo the math on your own later. You will find that the Nash equilibrium royalty rate is equal to 40 for both firms. If you plug this back into the price of the final product, you find P star is equal to 80. So this is what the users of the final product will have to pay for 1 unit of the final product. And if you again plug this back into the profit function of the 2 research firms, you find that they will achieve a profit of 1600. Okay, so this is the Nash equilibrium of the game played by the 2 research firms when they set their royalty rates independently of one another. Okay, now we want to compare this solution with another scenario where instead of acting separately, the 2 firms would coordinate their decisions. So they would talk to one another and they would choose the 2 royalty rates, R1 and R2, in view of maximizing their joint profit. Okay, and so the problem would be this one here, choosing R1 and R2 to maximize the sum of profit of research firm 1 and the profit of research firm 2. Okay, now look at the first order condition with respect to R1. Okay, if you look at how R1 impacts the total profit, well, there is something we've already seen. This is the impact of changing R1 on the profit of firm 1. But there is an additional effect that if you, say, increase R1, you would reduce the quantity of product that is sold by the manufacturers and reduce in that way the profit that is made by research firm 2. So this is the extra part that we have here that we didn't have in the first order condition in the previous problem. Okay, so that changes, I wouldn't say the reaction functions, but that changes the impact that each price has on total profit given the other price. Okay, so on the next slide I will explain again what is the intuition, but let's just take stock of the results here. If the two firms coordinate and choose the two royalty rates in order to maximize total profit, while solving the two equations that we have above, we will find that in that case they would choose a lower royalty rate. Remember, it was 40 on the previous slide, it's 30 now. Obviously that will decrease the price of the final product, and interestingly it increases the profit of the two firms. Well, that is not a surprise. They coordinate the decisions now. They could have chosen to keep the same royalty rates as before, 40, but here they realize that they can do better by lowering the price, and that allows them to make a higher profit. Okay, so let's just compare the two situations, the two scenarios. Okay, so let us compare the two scenarios. As we have just seen, when prices is coordinated, the price of the final product is lower, which means a larger surplus for the users. I mean, everyone buying the final product can now buy it at a lower price. And at the same time, the profit that the firms make, the research firms, is higher as well. Okay, so in a sense, everyone benefits from this coordination of pricing, and this is a result that was already shown in 1838 by Cournot, and now it is called the Cournot effect. When you've got two monopolies producing perfect complements, having these two monopolies merging improves the well-being not only of the firms, but also of the consumers. Okay, so what is the intuition behind this result? Well, when you have strategic royalty setting, we have what is called double marginalization. Each research firm is adding a margin over the cost of production. In the case of the research firms, this cost of production is zero. But there is a double marginalization in the sense that the total price, which is actually what the manufacturer will have to pay, is increased over what would prevail if the two firms were coordinating their prices. So why is that so? It's because when they set their prices separately, each firm ignores that by decreasing its royalty, it also increases the demand for the other firm, not just the demand for itself. Okay, why? Because the products are perfect complements. So if you reduce the price of one, you reduce the attractiveness of both, and there is a positive externality that a firm exerts by lowering its royalty on the other firm. But when they are separate, they ignore this effect. They care about their own profit. They don't care about the profit of the other firm. Things change when they coordinate their pricing. Firms are now concerned by maximizing total profits. So they internalize this externality that I just mentioned. They have an extra reason to lower their royalty because they understand that by lowering their royalty, they also benefit the profit of the other firm, which is now their concern because they coordinate their decisions. Okay? And that also benefits the users of the final product because total prices will decrease. So in a sense, we've got a cartel which is welfare enhancing. It doesn't just benefit the cartel members, but it also benefits the consumers. Right, this cartel is called, when it comes to complementary innovations and complementary patents, this cartel is called a patent pool. Okay, so simply put, a patent pool is a group in which multiple owners of patents, which are essential to a product, come together and offer licenses to third parties for all the patents in the pool. When a patent pool is formed, the licensors get together and determine the royalty rates and related terms for the bundled license. While some patent pools are managed by the members, the more typical structure is for the patent holders to appoint a pool administrator or licensing agent to manage the pool on their behalf. And the most common use of patent pools is to provide a one-stop shop to license patents that are essential to an industry standard. Now, what we want to discuss is whether these patent pools form, and if they don't form, why is that? So if we look at the history of patent pools, we see that some have succeeded but others have failed. So here are some examples. Probably the oldest patent pool is the sewing machine combination. So for a long period of time there were a lot of different sewing machines that were produced, and each producer was trying to enforce their property rights. So there was a kind of sewing machine war, as it was called, and the multiplicity of patents made it very hard for new innovations to use the previous innovation. So this is typically the tragedy of the anti-commons that we mentioned before. And to try and ease the development of new sewing machines, all the producers came together and formed this patent pool. More recently, the MPEG LA is a patent pool that licenses all essential patents that are required to use various digital video standards for compression of full motion images, like the MPEG that you probably know. Now, in the same industry, and this is an example of a patent pool that failed, the HEVC, high efficiency video coding, started as a common pool, but at some point fractured into three distinct groups that are somehow competing with one another. And the reason was disagreements on proposed royalty rates and the allocation of these royalties between hardware and content. So this example shows how hard it can be to form a patent pool, although we have just seen that a patent pool creates collectively higher profits for the members and also benefits customers. So why is it that patent pools are hard to form? Well, the main reason has to do with what you have with any cartel. So we think of a cartel like the OPEC that artificially increases the price of oil. But if you look at the history of OPEC, there are many episodes where the discipline within the cartel was broken by one or the other member. Here it's exactly the same story. There is a divergence between individual and collective interests. And that creates an inherent instability of the cartel, because each patentee, each licensor, these are synonyms, each patentee is tempted to free ride on the other patentee's effort to keep their royalties low. So if I'm one of the patentees in the pool, I'm quite happy that the other patentees are decreasing their royalty rates, because that increases the demand for the final product and also increases the demand for my patent. And I'm tempted to raise my royalty rates to benefit from this higher demand. As everyone in the pool has the same interest, keeping this discipline of having low royalty rates is very hard, and that makes the cartel, the pool, very unstable. Now, in real life cartels, and that was the case for HEVC, there are also conflicting individual interests, because the members of the pool may be very different. They may have different objectives. You may have for-profit companies, but also not-for-profit organizations or research institutions that have developed complementary innovations. You may have research firms that are in the upstream industry of research. You may have implementers or manufacturers which are in the downstream industry, or you may have also integrated firms that mix the two, and obviously they will have different objectives. Okay, and more importantly, you also have that firms bringing patents to the pool may bring very different contributions. They may bring different numbers of patents, patents of different importance or complexity, patents that necessitated different R&D costs, and so on and so forth. And so when they have to negotiate how they will distribute the total royalties that they obtain, they will claim that they need more than the others because, for example, their patent is more important than the other patents. So it's very hard to agree on how to distribute the proceeds of the pool. Another reason could be what is called a patent ambush. Okay, that's a situation where a company intentionally withholds information about its essential patents until after a technology standard is adopted. And then it comes and demands royalties from industry participants who are now obligated to use the patent technology. So it's a form of patent holdup that we described in another video that may take place in standard setting organizations that are trying to form patent pools. And finally, that remains a price fixing cartel, okay, which have positive impact on consumers, but only if the cartel members, the patents in the pool, are perfect complements. Okay, but if there are some patents in the pool which are substitutes, then the cartel looks more like the OPEC, where price fixing leads to higher prices than without a cartel, and so this is detrimental for consumers. Okay, so antitrust authorities will need to make sure that within the pool you have only complementary patents and not substitutable patents. And another thing is that this patent pool cannot abuse its dominant position later or exclude potential members, and so abuse its dominant positions is something that antitrust authorities need to be careful about, and that may be a reason why antitrust authorities may not agree that a patent pool forms. Okay, so in a nutshell, there are many reasons why patent pools, although they can be beneficial for the industry, may not form in the first place. Okay, so let us take stock of what we have learned in this video. First of all, we've understood that innovations are complementary when they need to be combined to create new products. Then we stress the fact that when these complementary innovations are licensed strategically by their respective right owners, the total access price is too high and it becomes harder to create new products. This is what has been called the tragedy of the anti-commons. Now, a patent pool solves the problem because by coordinating the pricing decisions, the patentees find it collectively profitable to reduce the total access price to the innovations in the pool. Yet, the problem is that, like any cartel, patent pools are hard to form, especially when potential members have different objectives or contributions. Thank you for your attention.